I feel like any work of art, any creative work exists as an interaction between the person who created it and the person who's experiencing it.
I'm Ian Reid, and I'm the author of the novel I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
I'm Charlie Kaufman, and I wrote the screenplay and directed I'm Thinking of Ending Things. I remember calling my agent and saying that I really liked the book and I wanted to see if it had been optioned yet. Were you aware that I was going to call you? Had you been given a heads up?
Yeah, well, yeah, it is. Yeah, because the agent had been sending it around a little bit, and I'd never had any kind of interaction with film producers at all or anyone in the film world. So I was kind of going through it for the first time, and most of the calls had been with like multiple producers at a time, and that kind of felt, I would say, disingenuous, not overly exciting. She sent an email one afternoon saying, "Oh, would you have time next week to talk to Charlie Kaufman?" And I actually remember I have a little desk calendar, and I remember looking down at it, and it was literally blank. There wasn't one date in it, and I was like, "Yeah, no, I think I can probably manage to do that." What I remember about it and liked about it was that it was just you and I on the call, and there wasn't anybody else, and it was very casual. We talked, I would say, for 5 or 10 minutes about the book, and then we just talked for a while about a variety of things. And
yeah,
it was really casual.
Many conversations over the years that have just been conversations, and then we met each other in Reykjavik.
Yes, exactly.
You
exactly.
invited me to
stay
in the guest house there. And I remember you said you were anxious about like, what is it going to be like to be stuck in this place with this person that I don't know, and I'm always anxious like that. So
and I remember
very comfortable, I thought.
And I think we had even just some of the conversations we'd had before meeting a person, I think to me kind of confirmed a little bit that we had some similarities as far as probably a little bit in our personalities, and then also some similarities in our interests and what kind of things we're drawn to as far as our own work. But then that first call, even I remember us talking about a variety of different film and music and books, and that was more, I think that was more what that conversation was about, just kind of casually getting to know each other. And to me, that, I think, in certain ways made me more interested and excited about the prospect of having this project, because in comparison to all the 3 or 4, however many other conversations I'd had, they felt much more formal. And as I say, it almost felt to me like with some of those producers I talked to that maybe they hadn't even read the book, that it was sort of like, oh, maybe we can take elements of this story and make a horror movie or something. But we talked about the book briefly. I knew that you had read it, that there were parts that you had that had resonated with you, and then from there we just kind of talked about a variety of things.
And I remember it was very important to me that you knew that this might take a while before this actually happened, if it ever happened.
Exactly.
Because once I engage like I did with you, then I start to feel a responsibility, to you or to whoever it is, that I don't feel if it's all sort of like vague and abstract and I'm just thinking of things. And historically, I think I've found I get interested in something and I call my agent and find out if it's been optioned, and then I kind of get cold feet and I move away from it. And I think that happened even with this, but I feel like you kind of didn't let it happen.
No, exactly.
And the fact that I knew you at that point made it more difficult for me to back away from it.
I mean, that's I know what you mean. To me, it was sort of that same. I think because once we had talked, to me in my mind, it was like there's no one else who now I would want to do this, and it was never in my mind that this was going to be adapted into a film anyway. It's a very internal kind of literary story. I didn't think that was a possibility. But then once you and I had talked, obviously I liked your work. I was aware of you. I was a fan of yours. So that was nice to know that you'd come across the book. But then also just that, again, I liked you after we talked as a person. I thought we got along well. So for me, it seemed like there was no option that anybody else. So I wanted to keep it alive for as long as possible. And it just kind of, to me, and now again, I know a little bit more about film and how impossible it is to get things made. So it feels kind of miraculous that this ended up happening.
I remember we had a lot of conversations about casting.
Oh yeah, that I do have memories of just like lying at home. Like
we pretty much hired everybody in Hollywood and outside,
exactly.
and also from Europe and
yeah, oh yeah, I remember
Canadians.
Yes,
yeah, it was sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to say I can remember just like randomly certain nights sitting at home like eating popcorn, and I get an email from you with an obscure European actor, and then I would reply with a couple that I had come across. And you're right, I feel like over the course of months we must have casted with 30 or 40 or 50 different, which again, that for me, that's fun. Like it was
fun for me too. Yeah.
Thinking
one
about
of my favorite things is casting or even that sort of like imagining casting kind of stuff.
We also did that with music a bit too. I think I remember sending lots of music back and forth, right?
Yeah.
And how even I think in that first call, maybe just again, completely theoretically, we talked about what kind of music I even was thinking about when I wrote it, or what I could think about, and then from that point on, just sending each other music that seemed to somehow convey the tone that we were thinking about, because I think we both knew this wasn't a horror movie, and because I sort of felt that way about the book, and it's been interesting for me to see how the book gets marketed, sometimes as a thriller, sometimes as a horror, and I've never really thought of it as a thriller. To me, it's just a literary novel, and it's unsettling, and it's philosophical, but but certain people will take it that, and for me, I can't really, that's fine, I can't control that, and I think you and I both understood it's not really at its best if it's just going to be a generic horror movie. That's not really what it is.
I feel, that was also something that I, felt and worked against in making it. Because there are scary things in it, but there are also other things in it they're unsettling, but they're also, tragic.
Exactly.
And, and you can't, it's hard to maintain that if you move into a genre. Because it becomes about that, and
that's
and
right.
There are conventions that you have to attend to, and I didn't think that was going to serve the material.
But I think the other thing, maybe another sort of similar that ended up was the length of the book being very short, and that was, obviously that became intentional for me during the editing process to remove as much as possible to really, and I think one of the reasons for that was both it's obviously a fairly contained story, but also because I did have in my mind that there would be some potential for rereading, and that the second reading of the book would be different. And I like that idea, and I love rereading books. I do it often, and I do feel like the movie has that in some ways. That was my feeling right away. I wanted to watch it again, and it would be a different experience. Yeah,
that was the intention, and I salute you on the length of your book, because I think you're right. It makes sense.
I mean, I guess with a movie, you probably don't. Maybe you don't think about the length quite as much. That just happens as you write the script, or
you're required to think about the length, because you can't. There's a limit to what they'll accept as a length. So,
true.
And like over a certain amount, you don't have any rights to edit it. They'll just come in and turn it into whatever they want. So you want to control that. Movies are different, in my estimation, than books, in that you're taking something that can be sort of enigmatic on a page and you're making it concrete, because now you've got people and actors and sets, and you're saying this is what it looks like, and you have to address that. I feel like one has to address that difference in making a movie.
The other thing to me that is I think really close with the book and the film is that I've always thought of the book as just being about questions more than anything. One or two particular questions, but in general questions. I like questions, and not really about any kind of particular answers.
Right.
But
I remember you said that. I remember you said that you felt it was a philosophical book.
And which is in some ways why there's that sort of so much dialogue, especially at the beginning, back and forth, which to me is I think conducive to questions and trying to understand something a little bit better, but not necessarily coming to an answer. And I think that's also why, again, people talking about the end of the book sometimes, people have said, oh, well, I figured out, or I anticipated the twist halfway through. And in my mind, I'm like, well, there's no, what do you mean the twist? Like, that's not how I really set out to write it.
It's funny. People don't get the ending of your book sometimes. And which is really interesting to me. Like they don't understand. Like I've read little things online where it's like, well, what happened? I don't understand. And it's like,
people have sort of been quite emotional with me about what the ending means to them,
yeah.
and they want to know what it means to me. And sometimes that's not what it means to me. And they almost want to argue with me that, well, this is what it has to mean. And I think, well, it does for you, and that's valid. That's right. But for me, it means something very specific, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that probably is the same with the film. It's not really necessarily about the end, but it's sort of about everything that's happening and the questions that arise.
Yeah. And for me, when I'm in those kind of conversations, I don't say what it means. It doesn't exist without the experience, the person experiencing it. And so they bring to it what resonates with them based on their life experiences or whatever, you know. Or,
it completes it somehow, right?
It's necessary, I think, because it's a process. And if you spoon feed stuff to people, then you don't allow for that process, and therefore it's a lesser experience.
Yeah.
So when the two people are arguing, this resonates with you because this is your life experience, and this resonates with you.
That's right.
This is your life experience, and neither of you are wrong.
Yeah, you're both right.
Yeah, you're both right, because you can't be wrong. It's impossible.
Yeah, it's impossible to be wrong.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the Netflix Film Club channel to get our latest exclusive videos. Plus, hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.